Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Carlton People. Now, you've seen this gentleman before. You're going to see a lot more of him as the season and as the years go on. But you're about to meet Tony. Tony, welcome to Carlton People, mate. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me on again, Terry. Really appreciate it.
No, that's okay. We had you on after round 0, 2024. We'll get to why we had you on, but I think first and foremost, let's get to the root of you and your Carlton, the Carlton side of you. Who are you, and how'd you become a Carlton supporter?
Well, I'm definitely not your common story, I guess. As per a lot of diehards, I guess a lot of people from Melbourne and the like are born into it through their family, and it goes through the ages, and that's definitely not the case with me. My family are born and bred in Queensland, Bundaberg and Wide Burnett region up here, and rugby league is their thing. So I was grown into a rugby league culture. But my uncle, who was from Melbourne originally, was a devout Carlton man. Now, my cousin, his son, he was 2 years older than me. So as we grew up and I'd visit my cousin, he'd dominate me and everything. So, footy in the backyard cricket, didn't matter what it was. He, to me, was my idol because he seemed to be unbelievable at any sport because he was 2 years older than me. Anyway, he also had a really bad temper. And one particular day we were watching Carlton play on the old 34-centimetre box television back in the day, and Carlton lost this particular match. So I was 6 and my cousin Corey was 8. And after they lost, his dad was, a few choice words and sort of stomped off. And my cousin, in his anger, went over and kicked the television off of the little table that it was on. It rolled along the floor after Carlton lost. And for me, that was like, okay, that sealed the deal. Like, Carlton's my AFL team for my life because, my cousin that I idolised, Corey, loved this team. So it all started in that fashion. So as time went on, I followed the Brisbane Broncos, and I was just a tragic when it came to state of origin in rugby league. But time passed, and I realised that AFL was actually the sport I enjoyed watching the most. I got to a few live games, and it won me over. So it's very different. And I really only was tragic Carlton probably from about 2002, 2003. So I literally have gone through some of the worst period as a Carlton. Before that, when I was sort of a casual supporter, they were just one of the best teams, pretty consistently, always up there. And then when I turned my attention to AFL over the last 20 or so years, it's been a real struggle. But I think that's been part of, I won't say it's what I loved, but I still embraced that pain. And I knew that being part of the journey, I think, is just as important when you support a club. And, I really appreciate when we've had these little wins along the way. And then last year was something to savor that, I still to this day in any sport to be there last year when I saw Melbourne versus Carlton in the semi and Blakers kicking that goal in the final seconds and feeling that grandstand shake. Still right to this moment feel that and gives me goosebumps. And yeah, I'm hopefully taking my children now on the journey for Carlton. I've got a 6 and 8 year old boys, and my wife, all 4 of us are Carlton members. I've been a member now for 15 years. And for someone that grows up living in Townsville, that's not all that common up here, but I am starting to see a lot more baggers come out of the woodwork up here. So I don't know, that's sort of my story, Terry.
Fascinating. Wow. Yeah, it truly is. Obviously, the semi-final, I think, is immediately etched into our core memory, I would say, our core memories along the way. There's certain wins and there's certain moments that you just never forget for the rest of your life. And I can't help but feel like that Blake Acres, that whole game, that whole passage of play was one of them. What were some of the early ones that really got you hooked? Because you mentioned, you saw the sport, fell in love with it, and then before you knew it, decided that AFL was for you, and then later on Carlton. So were there any particular games or memories that helped latch you on further?
It's funny. A few of the ones that hurt, that really stuck with me have been some that have also hurt the most. But and Whitnall and the like. But the ones that really stick with me, I still remember watching when Juddy went down, and I realised that was probably the end of his career. I remember having a tear that day. I was in Adelaide when it happened, and also I was live at the Gabba for that finals match when Fev was against us, and we were leading, I think, by 30 points at 3/4 time, and I was up and about, jumping around, dancing in my seat. That we, had the lines polished off, and then him and Bradshaw went berserko in the final quarter, and it was a depressing moment. And another big one actually was the Gold Coast Suns' first ever match at the Gold Coast. I got down there for that, and that was also Juddy's 250th. And my wife and I and some friends, we took giant Juddy heads and Beck heads, Beck Judd, and just half the crowd wanted to wear them for the day. So there's lots of great moments, but then obviously going to 2 Blues Brothers events that we would 40+ points down in both of them and came back in both and won them in pretty dramatic style. Like, it just keeps coming. And at the moment, we're playing some exciting footy most of the time, and it's bruising and we're playing tight games. Like, we're fighting it out, whereas over the last decade, there was probably a lot of times that they were forgettable games because they sort of diminished into nothing. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of. I was a massive Cruiser man. I just loved Cruiser, loved Simo. There's those special guys along the way that you just never forget a lot of the moments that they've had.
We were all yearning for the club to turn it around, and we got to finally see what it looked like when they figured it out for a period of time, so to speak. How quickly did you become a believer in the turnaround, or were you a believer from the beginning?
Mate, I'm probably, anyone that knows me, I'm too positive. So when Carlton got on board, I thought, this is where we're away, boys. And Teague was always still like, I wasn't so sure, purely because it's sort of coming off the back of a assistant coach. I was never quite sure of that, but with Bolton, it felt like, okay, this is a fresh start. And obviously his first year, the draft pick was insane when we got Weeders and Curnow and Mackay and Cunners and JSOS, etc. So it felt like this is a statement that we're going to move forward from here. And I guess we did. And when Vossi came on board, I always had a bit of a grudge against Vossi because he was coaching us that night in that final when
he was.
And Fev, and I always hated that he took Fev from us. And I felt like back in the day, it was like he was trying to buy a premiership as soon as he became coach of the Lions. And I was a bit up in the air when we did decide that he was our head coach. But man, you see the passion in him and the way the players play for him. Even when we're scrappy, they're still playing for Vossi. And I think that is very different to past seasons. Well, when we look 3, 4, 5, 15 seasons ago. So I don't know. When you say the actual moment in time, it's still I just don't like to get my hopes up, even though I believe that we are in such a great place. And it doesn't matter. I believe every week we can win.
Yeah, no, fair. What's it like being an interstate supporter?
Well, I think I'm bridging the gap a bit now because I've become close with guys like Risto and Nick Caruso and Carlia and down in Brisbane. Well, Carlia's obviously interstate as well, but last year I was a sponsor for Harry Lemmy. Yep. And I got to 5 games. So I feel really lucky in that regard that the last couple of years I've had that opportunity, because it's a bit of an addiction, adrenaline. Once you get that taste and you realise, save your pennies and you can get down there a bit more often, that's that's the way I feel now. I sort of live like a Scrooge here just so I can get to a couple extra Carlton matches down there. But I think Carlton supporters group Queensland is insanely tight. I think I would know 150 of the group at a pretty good level now. So, we share a lot online and through Messenger and the like. And yeah, obviously we don't have that luxury of being able to go to the game every week, and I wish I could. And I've told my wife when we retire that we're moving just outside Melbourne so I can. But it is what it is. It doesn't make us any less passionate.
No,
and
not at all.
and I still think we contribute in a lot of ways. And hopefully, when the boys come up to play the Gold Coast and Brisbane, we make our presence felt.
No doubt. I mean, I've now been to every interstate game except I have not been to WA. So I haven't been to Perth, haven't seen us play there. I find, I mean, as someone who's grown up in Melbourne and has the the luxury of going to most games when I'm here, I've found and I learned it over the last few years just how important and how special our interstate supporter groups are and the functions that we host, because it's really easy to catch a footy vibe in Melbourne. It's not as easy to catch that same energy interstate. So it's almost like you're traveling. I mean, I've over outside of Australia for a few years, and there was no footy energy anywhere. And so when I do the interstate trips, I'm in my own country amongst my own people, but there's another little subsection of people that have made it feel more home. I find it really, really fascinating. And Queensland in particular was the one that blew me away. I mean, I was there for the Gold Coast game at the end of 2023. And that's when I first felt it in Queensland. That's when I first saw the Blues brothers and sisters. And that's when I was like, oh my God, like this is like what we've got going on in all the states is really, really fascinating.
Yeah, one particular instance, I'm not sure if you're at the pre-function last year for the prelim final against the Lions, but the march from the hotel, the pub we went from to the Gabba was something you had to experience. Nick Caruso was at the front just getting everyone chanting and singing, and then we got to the Gabba, and near Gate 4 there's a big park area, and he was standing up on a statue and just the noise being made, you would have thought people were just walking into a Carlton home game, even outside of the stadium before we got in there. It was something really special. So yeah, I feel like there's this platform laid at the moment up here, and the supporters are really getting around it and making the effort to get to the games. And it's not just people in Brisbane, it's rural areas up North Queensland. Everyone, when Carlton comes to the state, they all make an effort to get down there and fill as many seats as possible.
I did mention that we've had you on the channel before, but seeing as this is your Carlton People episode, I want to document for the history books about the Blues brothers and sisters. What is it? How did it start? And what in the world is going on right now?
I know we have sort of chatted about this briefly in the other episode, but so it started 3 years ago. So my entire life after university, I did 26 years of engineering, and my life was getting very stressful. I was working long hours. I wasn't seeing my kids. But back in 2017, I had my birthday, and I decided to invite 80 mates to the cricket. And because it was also Star Wars birthday, we went dressed as 80 stormtroopers, and I was dressed as Darth Vader. And then Cricket Australia were like, this is one of the greatest things that's ever happened for us on television and our publicity. Can you do this every year? So I continued to do the Gabba Troopers every year, and to this day, it's going stronger than ever. It's turned into a viral sensation around the world now. We made the Star Wars site this year and had like 7,000 likes on there. So that continued. But what happened was the Brisbane Lions gave me a call, and they said, we love what you do with the Gabba Troopers. Can you please come and do something similar for the Gold Coast Suns versus Brisbane Lions Q Clash, because we want to raise the bar, get some more atmosphere, and try and get numbers up in that particular fixture. And I couldn't give a rat's about either of those teams. So I was sort of like, well, I'm actually a tragic Carlton man. Is there any chance I could do the Lions versus Carlton game, which was 2 weeks later in the season? And they said, no. Carlton's just too big of a blockbuster team. We sell out everything in that game. There's no point. No, we'll just leave it. Can you just consider doing the other game? So I turned around and said, well, no, seriously, I only like to really put my project time into something I'm really passionate about. Yeah. So we looked at that. And 2 days later, the gentleman calls me back and he said, oh, look, if you do the Suns and Lions game, we'll give you the Carlton game. So there we had it. We had the 330 seats in the corporate section at the Lions versus Carlton match, and I also ran another Gabba Trooper style event for them for the Suns game. We sold out the Blues seats in no time at all. We only half filled the Suns Lions, but then from that year on, the Suns sort of looked after themselves, and they said the Blues Brothers event just took the nation by storm even that year from a broadcasting standpoint, because it was something so different. And from there, we went to the Gold Coast the following year and then this year. So the Gold Coast game was a game where if we won the match, we were locked in for finals for the first time in a decade. And we were losing by 40-plus points that game. As you would know, you were there. And then we went on that crazy run of dominance and we won that match in insane style, and it went nuts up in the Blues Brothers section. Whilst it probably wasn't seen so much on TV because we were a little bit higher up in the stands that day, for the actual members of the Blues Brothers, they basically said, look, we're here to stay. This is what we're doing every year. It's nothing better than sitting and watching a game with like-minded, passionate supporters. So I had my Queensland base sort of set up. And then this year happened. So round 0, fairy tale win. The cameras were all over us because of where we were seated, just behind, or immediately behind the goalposts. Got interviewed by Abby Holmes. The cameraman from the other side, the guy that ran the camera crew, came over and he said, you guys are just on the TV every time Carlton, jags anything in the slightest. Wow. And then my life got turned upside down from about 3/4 time onwards. I was getting messages from people I didn't know, chasing up how to get the shirt and, this, that, and the other. And, I didn't really check my phone till about 3 beers after the final siren. But it was just, I was playing catch ever since. So it was, I just had no idea. Like the Gabba Troopers is sort of at that level too, but it just kept growing organically over time, whereas this sort of exploded after round 0. And yeah, I mean, it's just a wonderful thing because I just love Carlton so much. So for something that means I get even more involved with Carlton works, like, I don't know, for me, that's a dream come true. I'm still, pinching myself that I even got to do the first one. So just feel very lucky, mate.
Yeah, no, a lot of gratitude. I can certainly see it. It's funny, there's that saying, you build it and they will come. I think this is a classic example of building something, community based, obviously. If you talk about, the work within the Queensland supporters group, and then, I remember talking to you just after opening round, and you were on a plane before we knew it. You traveled for a bit overseas, and it was all a bit of a whirlwind. What can we expect moving forward? If what's happening? What's the plan?
Well, the plan right now is round 22 versus Hawthorn. I spent a month overseas with my family, and the second last day before I flew home from America, I had an email from the club. So Carlton reached out and said that they had locked aside 550 seats for me in section M4, which is the section adjacent to the cheer squad on the ground level. So the cheer squad and ourselves right next to each other, so essentially doubling the numbers. And yeah, so I've been busy setting that up. It actually went on sale last week. The big issue at the moment is the AFL still haven't released that particular date, so we only know the weekend. But already 220 tickets are sold. Out of that 550, this is people just grabbing a ticket straight up, even without knowing if it's a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, because logistically I have to organise potentially up to 550 shirts with everyone's custom pick name and number on the back. And yeah, it's a huge task. But yeah, if anyone gets a chance to see where the seats are, look up M4, and it's just going to be an incredible atmosphere to be linked directly with the cheer squad. We were above them in round 0, and that's really awesome because we could get on the back of their sort of starting chance and help them out. But being right next to them, I think aesthetically that's going to be something else as well.
So 550, let's just say like one bay. So M4, the entire bay, is the idea. You purchase a ticket. Ticket gets you a shirt as well, or is the shirt separate? Like, what's the situation?
Okay, so because we've had people like that already own the shirt or own the fedora, etc., I've had to create a number of different packages, and I've named them after the boys. So the Cripper is the full package. So the Cripper will get you a fedora, your jersey with your custom name and number, it all shirt, a lapel pin, a cap, a stubby cooler, as well as your match day ticket, etc. So it's like the ultimate. But then your standard package is your Walsh, which has your fedora, your jersey, and your match day ticket. And every single match day package includes an automatic chance to win a 2024 team signed jersey, and also 2 chances for you and a friend to go down for the banner run. So take the banner out and watch the boys run onto the MCG. And every single adult package also donates to Carlton Respects, and also the Carlton Cheer Squad, trying to, give back to everyone as well. It's funny, I really feel uncomfortable taking money off people. So I have kept it as cheap as possible and trying to donate back. In fact, from the jerseys I sold while I was overseas, I've already donated close to $2,000 to Carlton Respects.
Yeah. Wow. Brilliant. That is something that I don't think I've ever seen in footy. I haven't seen anything like this before. So I'm all for it. I think it's innovative. I mean, hopefully we get a fixture maybe every year. There's a game. Is it too soon to think that far ahead? Or we're just trying to get through round 22 first and then worry about the future then?
No, I think you definitely have to look ahead. With these type of events of this size, you have to be as far ahead of the game as you can. In fact, Carlton did call me originally just before I left to go overseas, which was 4 days after the round 0 fixture, and they wanted me to do Melbourne Demons game, which is obviously this week. And I said, look, you need at least a couple of weeks to rake in numbers. You need 6 weeks to get the shirts manufactured and back, and then you got to post them out. And I was overseas for 4 weeks. I said, look, I just logistically can't do that. But they're really keen to try and get multiple fixtures happening next year. So next year, maybe I'd like to look at 2 or 3. I would love if we knew the fixture earlier to try and lock in afternoon games, because that really lends to the Blues Brothers sunglasses effect as well for the group. So we have that real Blues Brothers and Sisters aesthetic, I guess. So yeah, I think as soon as we get through this one successfully, I'd talk to the club and see what works for them and for us moving forward. And yeah, look, I would love it to be a legacy. I'll happily do this till I'm 85. And yeah, just bringing Carlton people together. It's become my favorite thing.
Unreal. No, it's absolutely unreal. Well, we'll put a link in the description for those watching this whenever, whether it's in 2024 or later. We'll put a link in the description where we can find all the packages, but also, obviously the Queensland supporters group as well, and the Gabba Troopers website. What a great name!
Yeah, yeah. No, there's been some great moments there, famous people too. doing the State of Origin this year as well. We've got 360 guys going dressed as Wally Lewis, which I don't know how many Melbourne people know him, but very iconic figure up in Queensland.
Wow. Back to our group, back to the footy. How do you see this group's development? You know, we've come out the other end of the dark times. We seemingly have been able to, you know, lift in our ability, and our consistency is probably still working. We're still working on it. But yeah, where are you seeing the group at the moment?
Yeah, look, it's hard to really. We are so far ahead of what we were 3 years ago. It's not funny. And when you say consistent, I think at least the consistency with our effort is reasonable compared to the past. Like, even though we're not playing, our skill set is not standing up consistently, but the effort is still there, and that's why we're sticking in games. When we get some of our crew back off that injury list, especially around the back line, it's going to change the format and the style that you can only play with the style of players that we have on the ground, and we're a very physical, dominant stoppage team. So, you know, we aren't as light-footed as a lot of other teams, and it stung us obviously with some of the rebound on us, and we're at the moment missing Gov and so to have that ability with quick shutdown speed, but then also quick decision making. I think our decision making has let us down a bit of late, but mate, I just feel like we're still right there to take the Premier year if we can keep everyone on the field, and that goes for every team. Any team that loses the types of injuries that we have, you wouldn't expect us to be 5-3. You know, so like, I know every time we lose, our supporter base gets frustrated. Like, I've never seen a supporter base get frustrated as easily as ours, but you just got to stay calm, because next week, if on Thursday night we go and beat the Demons, those same supporters will be so happy and think our boys are gold. So I just think it's early in the season. Vossi isn't the greatest coach when it comes to mid-game changes, but he is a great coach at adjusting throughout the season, I've found. So I have a lot of faith in him from game to game to put us in the right direction, and by the end of this season, that's when we want to be, you know, red hot. And I have complete faith in Vossi to do that. So everyone's playing for him. Now it's just, look, we've got to get our skills right, and our decision-making has to be a lot quicker. But, you know, most of the pieces are there. We've just got to make it all balanced. And, you know, one thing in particular is I still don't know if the 3 tall timber is right, but TD is so good. He's got to be in there. And I think Vossi's got a real problem there, because he's trying to patch together how TDK fits into it. But I think when Jackie Martin gets back, he is a missing link up there that is going to change everything, because he can play tall, he can play short, he's quicker, he's physical, and I think he will help the scoreboard, and we won't have to bomb in so much. If we bomb in this week against Melbourne, we're in trouble.
Big trouble. Yeah. Before I let you go, everyone gets the same last question. I mean, you sort of answered it there, but maybe I'll just confirm. Which year will the boys lift up the next Premiership Cup?
Look, it'll be this year. I'm really, really confident it'll be this year. Wow. Because I just think there's players like even Charlie, he hasn't hit his straps yet. When we have everyone there and we can play our style of footy, so both contested and rebound footy, I honestly, I don't fear anyone in this competition.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I do remember it wasn't that long ago when it was, you come up against a top 4 side and it's like, oh, you know, they've mentally got it against us, whereas now I don't fear any team. Yeah, it's a good point.
No, this is the year, mate.
I love it. I love it. Well, thanks so much for your time. Thank you for documenting your story. Thank you for what you've done with the Blues brothers and sisters, and I think just in the Queensland supporters group and the Carlton community in general. And I can't wait to see how this looks on TV, round 22.
Mate, thank you so much for having me on again. You're an absolute legend, and everything you do for the Blues community as well is just over the top. So I appreciate it.
All good, mate. Go Blues.
Go those Blues. Thank you.